Hello and welcome back to the Phil Gadd Podcast. Today I am joined by Paul Jenkins, and Paul runs a company called ThePackHub. Is that correct, Paul?
That's absolutely correct, yeah.
Yeah, and today we're talking with Paul about his business and how he got to where he is, and I'll just let Paul give you an intro and then we'll get into the meat of it.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Phil. Great opportunity to chat to you today about my business, which I like to bore everyone with in terms of talking about what I do. I'm Managing Director of a UK-based packaging innovation consultancy called ThePackHub. So we've been in existence about 10 years. And before that time, like many sort of entrepreneurs and new business startups, I was in the corporate world. So I had about 18 years in brand marketing. So quite a different lifestyle change and set of circumstances, but I've been doing the ThePackHub for 10 years. It's been a series of ups and downs, as every small business owner will testify, but fantastic in terms of work-life balance and all the positives and rewards that come with running your own business. So quite proud that we've over the years built a sort of a steady bank of sort of brand owners, retailers, packaging suppliers as regular customers. Hasn't been easy, but we're slowly but surely getting there.
No, that's great. So, over the 10 years, what do you feel has been, why do you feel now it is successful? I mean, success is determined by so many different factors and different things for different people, but from your perspective, what do you feel that is?
I think success can be determined by how you're feeling during the day. We've had 2 or 3 orders today and a couple of payments in, and I feel like we're flying. And that Monday was a very quiet day, and I think we know how are things going. But I think in terms of success, it is a long journey. And I think when I was in the corporate world, and I used to hear people talking about they start a new business and there'd be an overnight success, and I used to believe that. And actually, it's being an overnight success is almost impossible unless you sort of get very lucky or doing something illegal, because I just think it just takes such a long time to establish your business and build a reputation and a customer base. And so I think in terms of how I gauge success, I think it's been a sort of a series of steps. So when you first start up and you go a whole quarter without selling anything because you're building the foundations of a business, and success for you at that point is, can I get a sale? Can I actually get some income in? And then gradually you're thinking, well, I'd like to be busy with customers, and then you get to the point where actually it'd be nice if I can earn enough, to pay all the bills. And then I guess the next stage is you get to the point where you're generating more than potentially you need, and you can then look to reinvest and things like that. So I think success is always about reevaluating where you are on that journey, and I think that's one of the challenges of being a human, is that you're always reassessing what you're doing, and maybe you're never quite happy enough because you're always looking for that extra 10% increase in sales or profitability or whatever. And I did hear someone talking about, you're never happy with what you've got. And I think that my business partner pointed out that we'd reached a sales target about 18 months ago, and he said at the time, if we can get to this, I said to him, if we can get to the sales target, that's it. I'll be so happy. I'll relax. And I was pleased to get to that sales target, but I didn't. He had to point out that actually, I wasn't really sort of satisfied with that. And I don't know if it's greed or
I don't think it's
it's not. Yeah, I don't know what it is, but there's this sort of innate human characteristic that you're never quite happy with what you're doing and what you're achieving. There's this imposter syndrome going on as well, where you think, I ought to be doing better. Everyone else is doing well. So maybe when I'm a multi-billionaire like Elon Musk, I'll finally sit back and.
But I don't think you ever do, because I feel I've been listening to this guy. Highly recommend anyone. His name's Michael Burt. He's a coach. He has this thing about fanatical follow-up, or $1 million follow-up. He wrote a book about, but he's fanatical about what the follow-up is. He's called Coach Burt. You should. I'll send you some stuff anyway. But I was listening to his. I had him on one of his things on my headphones this morning when I was out running with the dog, and he talks about wealthy people follow up like they're broke, and broke people follow up like they're wealthy. So basically what he was saying is the wealthy people are always following up with something. They're always looking for the next opportunity, where broke people are a bit lazy and they think, and so I thought that was quite an interesting thing. And but I think that's it. I think in my industry, like real estate, I had a really good year last year, but at the end of the year, I did it myself. I relaxed. I was like, but then in my industry, if you relax, then the next sort of quarter isn't so great, because you've taken.
Yeah, I've often thought, what would it be like? Because I've got lots of hunger, lots of tenacity, lots of drive, because there's been a necessity ultimately to pay the bills and deliver a business that's sustainable, financially. And I often wondered what it would be like to have. Would I have that drive if I had more money than I knew what to do with, or more revenue than I knew what to do with? Would I still have that drive? And I'm not at that point at all yet. But I think I would. I think, but it must be harder. It's not about being desperate, but that's a really good point you made about that podcast you listened to, and about the hunger that you need to have, and if it's a really good point.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I often with that you mentioned there, like if that thought process of that mindset, if you do think, what would you do if money wasn't an object? Do you know what I mean? It's like it's a good question to ask yourself, because it's like, well, yeah, what some of the answers that come up if you ask yourself that question, I think it can be quite surprising, because if money, if you didn't have to worry about money, I'm sure there'd be other stuff to worry about, but I don't know. I sometimes think that to myself, and I don't know. I always struggle with the answer, I think.
I think the sort of the money dilemma, or the cash flow. I mean, for small businesses, it's all about cash flow. And I've often thought, in the early days, I was far less choosy about the kind of clients that we'd pick up and work with. And sometimes you speak to somebody and you get a bit of a red flag in terms of, this person's going to be difficult to work with, or they don't really know what they want. Or I don't really know if I can do this, and this might just be a real stress monkey, but you do it anyway. But I think as the business grows, you can be a bit more choosy about the kind of clients that you pick up or you work with, and that ultimately helps the whole work-life balance, because you enjoy more. It's more fulfilling. It's more just more enjoyable. So that is a lesson that I've learned. It's a false economy to sometimes pick up a client that is just going to be a pain in the backside, that won't pay the bills, that you won't ever please, just for that, chasing that buck. So that's one of the many lessons I've learned in 10 years of doing this business.
I think that's it. I think, absolutely. You do with experience, and well, not the luxury, but it's nice not to be able to. It's nice to be able to say no to some people because you know that you're not chasing the money, and you like you say that normally those people are such a time suck that it's detrimental to everything else anyway. So
and it ends up affecting. Sorry, it ends up affecting all the other projects you're working on.
No, absolutely.
You end up not doing them properly or as well as you could, because you're just worrying about the things, and you always have that sort of is it buyer's regret? Why did I do that? I knew I had the signals, and yet I still didn't go with my instinct. So I've learned a big lesson about that, and all my clients are wonderful.
All right, so like, what other lessons have you learned in the last sort of 10 years? I mean, what if you could say the top 3 things that have made your business more successful than it was, when you first started? What do you think?
There's lots of little things here, and I think everyone's got a book in them. And I feel like I could write a sort of top 20 things that I've learned, but I'm not sure anyone would want to buy it. But I think one of the things that I learned is that I thought I was an expert in the corporate world, but I was pretty clueless in terms of how businesses worked, because I think you're quite protected in that corporate world where you've got 400 other people doing various functions that you don't know nothing about. But when you run your own business, of course, it's all down to yourself. So I think I was a bit naive in terms of not really understanding how it all works, but I thought I did. I think the online world is a tremendous opportunity. I had no idea, and I cannot imagine trying to do this business 20 years ago without the internet. I mean, we wouldn't be talking now, for example. But we've effectively got an international business. I work from home in a modest house in leafy Berkshire in the UK, and during lockdown didn't leave my house pretty much, as we weren't allowed to, and was able to get new clients, generate invoices on an international basis, because the world is open now because of the opportunities for online. You can have meetings, you don't need to travel. You can supply services online, so reports and webinars and various other things. So I think that was one of the sort of lessons I learned, that actually you don't need to even have an external office. We've got a team of people that work from home. That keeps costs down. It can be a bit boring and a bit dull being at home most of the time, but I think but it's great. I can have customers. We pick up customers in places like Estonia and South America and Africa that 20 years ago would be beyond my wildest dreams. So that is an important lesson that I've learned. And something else I've learned as well is I've made many mistakes, which isn't a bad thing. I think this cliche about learning from your mistakes is really true. And I sometimes cringe at some of the decisions I made in the early days, based out of desperation and naivety, really, in terms of some of the things that I thought I knew the market. And I continue to make mistakes. Perhaps they're less frequent, but I think when you make a mistake, you're trying something different, and you need to go through that process to know that it won't work or hasn't worked. And it might be that a tweak's required, or actually, no, that is not the right thing for this business. So, I've done a lot of things right, but I'm more than happy to say that I've made lots of mistakes, and I don't regret or look back on those sort of in a bad way, really. So I think that's
it. I think that's the thing, and before you start your own business, I think making mistakes for me was like, you never, being employed by someone, you never really wanted to make mistakes, but like when you do make mistakes, it's almost, you're not progressing if you don't, you know what I mean? Because you're not pushing yourself, you're not putting yourself into, I'm sure there's a million quotes out there about, making mistakes, but yeah, some are bigger than others. And, the biggest lesson I suppose I've learned from making mistakes is try not to do them again, especially if they're big ones.
Yeah.
But, you're not going to get to a certain level, I don't think, if you think that it's just going to be, easy and plain to get there. And I think that's another thing as well. Like, it's really difficult running a business. I mean, it's not like, and you just need perseverance. You need to be able to say, right, I'm going to get from A to B, and getting to B, I have to be doing all the right actions and whatever it takes. And there's going to be failure along the way, but yeah, you have to learn from that failure to make it better, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Something else I've learned, you asked for three things. I think my sort of third thing is about sort of a mixture of things, really, about the, how social media and sort of an online presence and sort of building a reputation online. LinkedIn is very useful for me, and you're very good at making sure that you're present and top of mind on social media channels. I'm always seeing you popping up on Instagram and Facebook, which is brilliant. But I just think it's quite a cost-effective and inexpensive way of building a reputation just by constantly turning up. So I built up a big network on LinkedIn, and the number of people come up to me and say, "Oh, you're so busy. You're always doing all these things," and all it is just having a confident online presence where you're sharing ideas or news items or starting a conversation about things, and it's building that sort of network of contacts that may turn into customers or collaborators. And occasionally I'll LinkedIn, someone will connect with me on LinkedIn, and I think, oh yeah, they sound like someone I would like. They're in packaging. It's an interesting business. I'll link in with them. And then 5 minutes later, you get a sales pitch, and you think that's just so disappointing, because let's turn up and let what I want how I want that relationship to evolve is I want to keep seeing them coming up on LinkedIn with various posts that impress me or interest me, and and at some point you might have a need to start a conversation, and then they can start that sales process. But just to I feel cheated when someone connects with me and then they immediately pitch in with this sort of sales story, particularly when it's sort of misunderstood. They've not even read my profile properly enough. Do I want to buy a load of machinery, which is not something my business would ever do? So just think it's all about relationships rather than sort of selling and building this network. You can be really small business but still be known by lots of people in this world. It's a very sort of opportunity to be what's the word, equal with others, sort of level playing field almost.
No, it's true. I think that the key word there you mentioned was relationships, and it's absolutely like what I'm finding of talking to different people from different industries. That's the key, especially in sales. It's relationship over sales, building relationships over selling, I think, is much more can't think of a better word than better for building a business, but it's so true. And there's also referring back to this coach Bert, but he talks about most people take anywhere from 8 to 15 touches before they feel comfortable and trust you enough to do business with you. So just showing up, like you said, and building relationships. Absolutely. Yeah. Nice key, I think.
And it's so much about trust. People, I get emails and LinkedIn messages from people saying about funding, and why would I immediately start a dialogue with someone I've never heard of, for a big financial decision? I want to be building a rapport with this person over an 18-month period where I see he or her turn up online or at conferences, webinars, and you sort of build trust and a relationship that way. And that's far. We've picked up. Doesn't happen all the time, but we pick up customers that have not spent a penny with us for 6 or 7 years, and eventually something happens where I guess they keep seeing ThePackHub, they keep seeing me turning up in places, and I think, right, actually now's the time. I do trust this guy. I do trust the business. I think they can do something for me. I'll make that inquiry, and it's so rewarding. And you think back to when you first had that communication, and it might have been an exhibition, and you swapped business cards, and then you connected on LinkedIn, and then you swapped the odd message here and there. And if I'd gone in with a sort of sales pitch 5 minutes after connecting with them on LinkedIn, I wouldn't have a relationship with them now. So, I think that's a really important way of doing business. It's all about relationships.
And what's your, what's your strategy kind of on follow up with people? How do you go about?
It's difficult because we were at an exhibition in London, in Birmingham in September. Sorry.
June, wasn't it?
It was in June. Yes, we got one in September in London, the one in Birmingham in June. Sorry. Yeah. And the guy came up to me, and I've been sort of in conversation with him for many years about one of our products. And he came up to me and he basically said, "But having a face to face, it goes right. Okay, I want that. Brilliant. Send me an email, and we'll get a PO sorted." So I thought, that's fantastic. That's paid for the stand and all the organising just for that. And big consumer goods company. I thought, this is great. And with our model, once we get them signed up, they tend to stay with us for a few years. So the lifetime value is really good.
Yeah.
So I sent him a note the following week saying it was great to see you at the exhibition and all this kind of stuff, and nothing. So then I thought, okay, well, I think it's permissible to send another note. Nothing. And then I left it a few weeks, and I gave him sort of, almost said, I'm just making sure I'm getting my emails. How can I help you here? You were the keen one. You were the one who was kind of rushing off to get a PO. And what it could be that the emails are getting lost in the system. He may have been made redundant. He may not want the service and is too embarrassed to say. But it's difficult, and you don't want to be pushy, but you've got to be tenacious, and ultimately as you mentioned, that 8 to 15 touch points, eventually they will land. And we picked up a customer this week that I looked at the email exchange, and it was pre-Christmas that we started the conversation, and they've just agreed to go forward, and now it's really speeded up. So you need that tenacity. I could have easily given up in February, but so in answer to your question, I think it kind of depends on who they are, the relationship you've got with them.
Yeah.
If you know them quite well, you could be a bit cheeky and a bit more pushy. But if you don't know them well, you're going to push them away if you're phoning and emailing them every 5 minutes. So you need to do it on a case-by-case basis.
I think it also depends on how you perceive that relationship or customer or potential customer has, what sort of impact they have on your business. I think, for example, for me, I do follow up quite, someone shows an interest, like even if they contact me via, I have some systems, but I always try and push them to a decision. Even if the decision is, no, thank you, I don't want your service, at least I know then. I think for me, it's key. The follow-up is key because you just want them to make that decision, whether it's yes or no.
Yeah, and you can then move on. I mean, and particularly in the UK, we're quite polite and don't like to offend and upset people. And sometimes people will feign interest and then not declare that they're not interested because they didn't want to upset you. But I'd much rather, like you, I'd much rather just know, so now I can move on. I can learn. I'd like to understand why they don't want to proceed. I can move on. I can either try one of their colleagues or just say, okay, right, that's it for now. There's plenty of other opportunities out there, rather than just not knowing. And nobody likes sending 4 or 5 emails or phoning people and not really knowing if they're in any way keen. You know, that's not good for anyone. So
I think the more I do it, I mean, I was never great at just. Well, I don't really call people. Well, sometimes I do. Not so much anymore. At least their leads, they either come from like social media advertising, or you know, I do a lot of work with. I have a guy who does a lot of good work for me with Google search. So people do come to me because they're searching for a service, a particular service. But once they connect, then I'm like, okay, right. Well, you know, I find all kinds of, you know, first of all, I try and talk to people, because I find straight away, if you have a conversation, that's the easiest way to know if it's going to be a yes or a no. But, you know, it depends on sometimes who you speak to in regards of, you know, sales training, because I know, I can't remember his name, but one guy he kind of basically says, even if someone says no, then they've sparked an interest, because they've taken. So, you know, it's like, it's where you stand on that. But, no, that's good. I mean, you've had much, how's mentoring and stuff like that look for you, that's helped in your business?
Nobody, particularly in a small business, I've got a business partner, so that is really useful in terms of sharing risk, sort of disseminating ideas and building the business that way. It's far. It just moves the business on faster when there's 2 of you, two decision makers, if you like, two risk people to take those risks. But having said that, you know, we don't know everything. We're not experts in fields that you know, in certain fields of the business life. So I think getting mentoring or help or outside views is key. And whatever price you pay for a mentor, you know, 9 times out of 10, I would imagine that they pay for themselves. You know, in the same way, if you were buying a house, good example, you would get a lawyer in to sort out. Pay for an expert to deal with that. You know, if you're building a house, you'd get a surveyor in. And it's just funny that there is a resistance to getting help, sort of business help, either strategic or behavioural. You know, in terms of how you can develop as a person. And you know, I've had some help over the last couple of years, and it's been tremendously helpful. You know, just can't, you know, one of those things like, why didn't I do this earlier? Just really, really useful. And that will always be a major part of sort of, let's say, marketing spend, the investment that I put into the business, because it helps me and ThePackHub as a brand, as a company.
Oh, absolutely. It's like, you know, I believe everyone should have a business coach. I mean, you know, Michael Jordan, you just look at athletes. They all have coaches. You know, professional athletes, and hence the word professional, have coaches to make them better. So why wouldn't you not extend that into the professional world of business? You know, it's just, in my opinion, like you say, you know, whatever you put in, you'll get out tenfold. Cool. All right. Well, I always like to get into some other questions apart from business. So, I know you're a big music fan, but if there was one album that you could say was your favourite of all time, what would that be?
I think, you put me on the spot here, I haven't prepared, but you shouldn't have to prepare your favourite album, should you? I would say The Stone Roses. Came out in 87, I think, 1987, 1988. So I was a student, and it had a big impact on my life at the time. And I went for a run lunchtime, and I was playing tracks from that album. I think just the way that the streaming works now, that I probably listened to at least one of those tracks from that album every week since it came out. Very boring, but even so much so that my it's sort of my wife also really likes it, so I think there's a sort of a connection there. I've got particularly my son really into Stone Roses, and we're all going to see Ian Brown, the lead singer, in London in a couple of months. So I'd say that was my favourite album. I hear it from the lens of being a teenager, but I also hear it now as well as a middle-aged man, I guess. But yeah, that would be my choice. Yeah,
it's a good album. It's one of my favourites for sure. What do you do? Books. What would you if you could, one book that you could recommend someone to read? Anything, business, fiction.
I'm going to say this is again without preparation. You may not remember this, and you are a great source of business book recommendations.
Oh yeah.
And you may not remember this, but even I think I was in my corporate world, so I was looking at read through the 4-Hour Work Week. I don't know, I forget what the title is.
Yeah, that's it. 4-Hour Work Week.
Very famous book. And there are two schools of thought. One is this is transformational and everyone could do 4 hours, and then other people say, well, actually it's pie in the sky. And I remember reading it, and okay, I'm not doing a 4-hour work week, unfortunately, but I still take snippets from that. Genuinely do that I use. Things like some of the admin stuff that we do at the ThePackHub. That I could pay. The value of it is like $10 an hour. They're the kind of things that that just have to do.
Yeah.
Without sounding sort of
no
or whatever. There are other things I could be doing that add more value to the business. So why would I do those tasks? Outsource them, give them to someone else, and pay them $10 an hour, because I like to think my time can generate more. So it's things like that and just the whole time management thing, and just using processes and procedures and other people, and that's something that I'm really starting to do now is expand and that's there's only so many hours in the week, and you can't do everything. So getting other people to help. And maybe I'll get down to 20 hours a week, but I can't imagine getting down to 4 anytime soon. But that was a really impactful book, and you put it on the spot, and that came to me.
No, that's that book's amazing. I mean, Tim Ferriss now is like a very famous, individual, author, podcaster, whatever, interviewer. But I read that book just before he emigrated and started my journey as a business owner, entrepreneur, whatever you want to label it as. And again, I wasn't doing a 4-hour week, but there's so many bits you can take from that book and one of the things you mentioned there, systems. Actually, I think it's helped me really be a very good systems person. So whenever I have anything that I need to do regularly, I just automatically create a system and try and document it. And even if it's just me doing it, because someday someone else may do it. And, that's kind of how the restaurant business kind of is for us. Now it kind of runs itself, but cool. All right, Paul. Well, your information's scrolling along the bottom of the screen. So that's your email address, and just saying that if people want to find you on LinkedIn, just to search your name. And thanks for joining me today. It's been great. It's been really interesting listening to your story of the ThePackHub for the last 10 years, and hope you have success to come in the years to come. So
thank you.
Thanks, Paul, and sure we'll be seeing you. Well, hopefully we'll be seeing you soon in the US, maybe.
Brilliant. Look forward to that.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks, Paul. I'll see you soon.
Cheers.